Welcome to another episode of Inside the Headset with Palestine High School head football coach Kyle Ralph and special teams coordinator Wes Anderson. I have a special guest today. Happy to be joined by our offensive line coach Dan Buchanan. Coach, welcome to the program.
Morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
So today we're going to talk about the 2015 semi-state game against Castle. The last episode we did was to finish up the Snyder game. So we're going to go back a week in time in 2015 here to the game before the Snyder game. And this semi-state game is a game that honestly we win pretty convincingly. So looking forward to talking about that. Looking forward to have Coach Buchanan on the show today to talk about kind of some offensive line perspective here in a game that we actually run the ball really, really well. So Coach Ralph, I know before we get rolling here, you had a question from a viewer, so let's go ahead and get that rolling.
Yeah, it's a long one, so I'm gonna read it off my phone here. But I got a lot of great feedback from the Snyder game, which is great considering how awful that was to have to go back and rewatch. So we do appreciate some of the positive comments and some of the feedback from that game. But I know Wes, you and I did that game together, but I mean, this could be, I guess, for both of you guys if you want. But this particular coach that I've conversed with a little bit, I'm just starting to get to know, asked me this question. And I said, it's probably best answered by these other guys. Well, I gave him a little bit of an answer myself privately, but he said that something was said in the Snyder video that struck him about how what was going out there on the field was months in the making, in your opinion, and that you owned that as a coach, and he understands that. He said in the fourth quarter video you talked about getting even more meticulous in your preparation and being even stricter on yourself. Were there any other shifts that you made, or how has that gone in regards to how you run your operation from that game forward? So I answered him privately, but I also said it might be something good to get the perspective of other people and be able to speak on that. So I'll let both you guys answer that if you want to, because I privately had kind of chimed in to him, but also I felt like it may be something really good to get other opinions on that for him or other coaches, et cetera, since I've already explained a little bit about kind of how that game, I guess, changed me a little bit in regards to my approach to things.
Yeah, I'll go first. The standard in this program is incredibly high, and it is what it is. And everybody affiliated with this program, players, coaches, trainers, managers, everybody is expected to meet the standard. And that's really the only option that there is. And, I came to the staff immediately after this game in 2016. And I've said this a couple times throughout the series, but I think this is a really good time to focus on it. I've never been around a coach that's more prepared than you are. And I assume some of that came from what happened across that Snyder game and how you felt afterwards. You are so dialed into the plan in all three phases: offense, defense, special teams. Even when so like it is an example, I think you and I talk pretty frequently, about the trust that you have in me to be the special teams coordinator. But even then, you are still so dialed into the plan, and you are still, I won't say hands-on is the right word, but, you are still very focused on what's happening during that portion of practice, what's happening during those plays in the game. You have your hands in everything, and I don't mean that to be negative. I don't mean that to be like micromanaging necessarily, but I've never been around somebody who can process as much as you can process. And I think that's one of the things that you do really well, is you just have the ability to process information so much faster than everybody else. But B, who goes into a game as prepared as anybody can ever be in terms of what you think might happen, what the film shows, what the tendencies are. You store all that and recall all that so well. But I think it's the preparation that really raises that. And I would assume, and you can probably answer this question, that a lot of the way that you are now with that stuff, and I'm thinking, as we come down the stretch in 2019, and, I mean, I think we all saw that, we're glad we won a state title, but that certainly was not a perfect team by any means. And we had some serious deficiencies in that 2019 team. That those things really affect you.
Yeah, no, they do in a major way, and you're making me blush. You're being so nice. No, that is a big part of it, and yeah, the preparation. Actually, Dan, it's probably a good thing that and interesting that Dan's on this one today, and that question was posed at the end of last week because, yeah, him and I. Really, since I probably got the job here, actually, he's a little bit like me in the regard that he wakes up super early on Sundays, especially, and is watching and breaking film and stuff down. So he puts a lot of time into that, and I think it's been, I don't know, he can maybe speak to this some if he wants to, but I think it's been nice for him too. But it's also nice for me that when I get up really, really early like that and start my Sunday prep. I usually get a text message from him within 25 or 30 minutes of even being awake with the offensive line's grades and everything else like that done. So having some like-minded people in that regard has been awesome because it can't be overstated when you've got other people that are working, the same way as well. And we're both early risers and I know you are as well, Wes, but It's always been nice that when I've got a bunch of ideas in my head at, 5:15 in the morning, especially because I start with the things up front, Dan's always awake and already watching film and sending me thoughts as well. So, the amount of preparation time that goes into it is it's extreme, but, I think at the end of the day, it's obviously worth it. So Dan, you can speak to any of that if you want to.
Well, it's almost like a competition to me, Wes.
Yep.
I know Kyle gets up early on Sunday morning, and I get up on Sunday morning, and I kind of have my same routine. I get up and grade the previous week's offensive line play before I ever start watching the opponent. And I always want to have some kind of input when Kyle texts me about what he thinks is good for the next week. And so I literally get up earlier and earlier every week so I can try and beat him to the film so I can get involved. But you're right. He watches about one run, and then he has ideas, and they're obviously always really good ideas. So, but that's kind of how we put together the running game. Amazingly, just via maybe a couple phone calls, but usually text on Sunday mornings, and we put the plan together for the week. One thing, I've watched all these shows with you guys, and one thing that I've noticed that I don't think I really realize as much is after this game, we don't carry a lot of plays anyway, but after this game, the quantity of things that we practiced offensive line wise was reduced significantly. We in some of the other games after this game, after the Snyder game, you see us running a counter here and this there, but this seems like the game where we literally, I don't know what percentage, but our running game is almost inside outside zone after this point. Other than some counter and a few other tweaks here and there, but I think we really dialed it in even more after this game, and I think that made us better in a lot of ways.
I agree with that, and we've had a few of those moments throughout the years too. The 14 game against Fortville was definitely one of them, and I think this one was another one where,
you do that.
We really dial it in after some of these moments. Yeah, I think you're 100% right on that.
The other thing too, and I'll go back to the competition thing. I think that's funny that you mentioned that because, like, I think it's just one of those. I don't know, Kyle. I don't know if you even care about this, but um, I think it's almost an unspoken thing to me. Like nobody's going to watch more film than me, and I am not like I talk about this a lot in my clinic presentations. Because I do a lot of data breakdown and stuff for special teams that a lot of guys just aren't going to do. Like I'm one of those freaking nut jobs that just goes to the 100th degree to make sure that we're as prepared as we can be and do all this data breakdown stuff. But I get to the end of Sunday and I always want to know how much film the other coaches have watched, and I want to be the guy watching the most film. And I talk about this in my clinic thing. Like I don't do it to just do it. There are guys I think that coaches that you follow on Twitter that talk about they just love to talk about how much they're grinding. You know what I mean? And they embrace the grind. And it's look, I hate the grind. Like I hate it, but it's what has to get done. And I do the amount of work that is necessary to get to the point that I need to get to. The thing about the film thing is I look in there and I go, yep, I'm not watching enough. And I've got to go back and I've got to do it again. And I've got to find that extra edge and I've got to find that extra clip that I missed or that extra thing where, I'm watching wide receivers and I miss this corner, make a bad play. I'm not doing it to do it, but I still want to do more than everybody else is doing. That's just kind of how I am in terms of that competition thing.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I even referenced this one time to the kids. It's not really like a competition for me, like internally, but because like you said, there's no pride in watching, hours on hours of film for the sake of hours and hours on film.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting out there on, Twitter and saying, oh man, I just put in a 10-hour Sunday. I mean, that's usually the least of what I do would be 10 hours on a Sunday, to be honest. But there was one week where I even referenced it with some, the kids as we were a little bit younger team. I think it might have been back in 18 or 19. I can't remember which year it was, but I referenced it with the kids of like, watching the film and stuff. It's part of your job. It's what you do. And I even referenced them. There was one particular week we had a really big game, and I do the same thing. I look to see how much film the kids are watching. I look to see how much film the coaches watch as well. And Dan actually had watched more film than me by like 15 or 20 minutes one week in particular. And again, he does a great job. He always goes back and kind of fine-tooth combs the O-line stuff as the week goes on. He watches all the practices. He gives those guys feedback on practices, et cetera. He goes back and rewatches the opponent and stuff, and which is really what a great offensive line coach is supposed to do, and he does a great job of that. And because there's so much detail that goes into that group. I've coached the group before, I get it, but I even referenced to the kids that there was one particular week where I got a little pissed at myself because in the middle of the week I'm supposed to be the one setting the standard, and I had a coach on the staff who had watched more film than me in preparation for a game, and that's unacceptable. Now while our styles might be a little bit different in regards to how we do things throughout the week and whatnot, it still was one of those things where, and I do like that. I mean, it's not that you're just watching film for the sake of watching film, but my thing is I'm going to be the most prepared. I have to be the most prepared. I'm the head coach and all that stuff. So yeah, I do take not a sense of pride, I guess. Pride is not really the right word, but there's a sense of preparedness and confidence I get from what I do. And I think that it has probably created a little bit of competition among the staff, and to a degree it's been that way with our kids too, because at the end of the day you don't want to be the person that doesn't know what you're talking about, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, that wasn't the intention, but I think some of that has actually been what's happened. So
anything else regarding that question that you want to tackle here? Can we cover it?
No. I mean, like I said, I responded to the guy privately, but just to share a little bit of that too for people who maybe are wondering. I mean, that was the reality of that situation. I took that game really hard. Like I said, I felt like I failed the kids and the coaches and really just the program as a whole. We had a great team. We had great players, and it was just, like I said, it was almost a perfect storm of sorts that ended up happening that particular night. And for me personally, just served as a major wake-up call that I just need to be who I am all the time, and that's just what it's going to have to become. And like I said, I told him too, I'm not it's not to say, and it's not like I'm a bad person to work for. I'm not like some raving lunatic, but I am hard to work for because I am demanding. I am intense about a lot of stuff. We don't cuss at our kids. I don't sit there and berate and belittle the coaches or anything, but there is an insanely high standard, and I'm hard to work for in that regard because I'm going to push everyone to get to that. And some people respond well to that and some don't. But it's not unprofessional or anything of that nature, I don't think. I wouldn't have all the coaches still here that I've had here for a long time if that were the case. But I am really tough because I expect you to be your best all the time. And for some people that's easier said than done. And that's tough because I'm not just saying it. I'm gonna make you be your best or the best that you can possibly be. And that's really the only way I know how to do things. And so that can be difficult at times. And I understand that. So that's why I appreciate what you guys all do so much. I mean, it's not easy and it is high school football. It isn't like we're signing massive, checks and I get a $3.4 million assistant salary pool and stuff. I mean, that would make things different. I mean, we're being paid by a small public school corporation and most of our guys are volunteers as it is. So I understand that aspect of it as well. And that's why I appreciate what all the guys do. And we got a wonderful staff. So yeah.
The last thing I'll say, and I think a lot of people affiliated with our program get some version of this question quite a bit. And the question is, what's the secret? We've had good players, obviously. But how are you guys doing this? How do you score 52 a game or whatever it is? And how do you only give up 11.4, I think is what our average is or something like that. And my answer to this is always, it's the standard of the program. And, it really, to me, is just that simple. The standard's a standard, and either you meet it or you don't. And we've been really lucky to have a lot of people internally in this program that embrace the standard. That's players and coaches. And I think that's really, truly what makes our program go. And that was kind of how I answered the first question, but I think that's the best way to state it is, you set the standard for what the program is, and it's way up here, and either get on board or don't. And, I think you do a really good job of kind of making that a personal responsibility for our kids, even for our community to a degree. You know what you're going to get with New Pal football, and setting that standard as high as it is and expecting that standard to be met, I think is always my answer to the question of what the secret is to our program.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's watch some film here. We're going to talk about the 2015 semi-state game against Castle today, and I'll ask this question to both of you here as we get ready to come out on offense. How did we feel turning the tape on Sunday? How do we feel about the week of prep? How do we feel going into this game against a new opponent for us in Castle High School out of Evansville?
Dan, you want to go first?
Yeah, I will say that they look really, really good. And it's when they're that far away and you don't have anything even close to a common opponent, it's a little hard to understand what good is. But they had a really good defense. They had a good defensive line. They had good linebackers. I mean, their offense obviously was, we probably caught them on a good day because with the weather the way it is. They were a really talented team. And going to play this game on Saturday, which is terrible because that means you got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and you got to be awake the whole day, and the nerves are running crazy. And I remember this day because I literally got up at like 11 o'clock in the morning and left and went to the school to set the tower camera up. And while I was doing that, there was about 3 inches of snow on the field, which, as you can see, it rained a little bit later and cleared the field off. But yeah, it was a rough day before and day of this game. I was left, and the nerves were really going strong. This season, after winning it in 14, and I don't know about Kyle or the other coaches, but from the time we started until the time the season was over, I felt a lot of pressure. I felt like that anything other than getting back down to Lucas Oil would be a failure. And we had a really good offensive line, and that most of them were back from the 14 team. In fact, all of them were back from the 14 team. So yeah, it was a tough day. That's all.
Yeah, I really a lot of the same. A lot of the major points that I remember from this game is exactly what Dan just said. The unknown has always been one of the hard things for us, and I know that's something we talk about as a staff as well. Like some of the guys have some experience like outside of what is our normal zone of teams that we play, and so we try to rely on that. But they looked incredible on film, and really outside of like a game or two had really just kind of beaten everybody up throughout most of this year here. They had a couple games that were somewhat close. I think the big surprise, and this was something that I know our staff talked about quite a bit. So going into this particular season, like Dan just said, and I would agree with that statement as well, there was a lot of pressure on us in this year to essentially perform again. And really one of the first times I think that, especially this is only year 3 now for me as a head coach and with the program, one of those things where, the 2013 season was just such a flash in the pan. We got hot, things changed and man, we took off, and it was like, let's just ride this roller coaster and essentially see where it takes us. 14 obviously was a little bit different, a little bit more of kind of a mission-driven year, not any pressure really. We were kind of more of the people that were chasing. And then this year was probably really the first time that I was aware of what those expectations are when you've won a state championship. We've got a lot of talent coming back. We started the year preseason number 1, and yeah, it really did feel, every week felt like a big pressure tank, and that was difficult. And this week to me was probably one of the most pressure-packed weeks that we had all season long. And I think to go back then, one of the big things that caught our staff's eye that we, like I said, we had talked about significantly was the week before this one, they had absolutely just, ripped to shreds Bloomington South, who for really 2 years had been one of the favorites in the state in 5A. So again, we're not accustomed to playing these teams, and we're playing schools that were kind of out of our normal, I guess, quote unquote area, the divisions and stuff, how they're split up. So these teams weren't even teams that were really on our radar. And I did know Bloomington South with Coach Moe had a couple great teams. As a matter of fact, their defense, I think in 14 and 15 was the state leading scoring defense. And then I think ours was right next to them. So I knew that. And they were talked about as a preseason state favorite for 15. And then Castle just went down there and, bombarded them. They scored at will. Bloomington could not move the ball. And, I turned the film on and it's like, my God, like what even is this team? So I'm trying to even find out where Castle was on a map. And, I didn't even know who they were. And they really came out of nowhere as like a little bit of a sleeper in this particular year. So I do remember about this game. I was exceptionally nervous for this one. It, like Dan said, it was on a Saturday. So the real negative there is I had all day essentially to just sit there and wait and be miserable and go through the scenarios in my head and just torture myself essentially. But they had a really solid defensive line. I thought their linebacker core was a little bit better. They had a couple guys on this group that went on to play college football that I thought were really good. Their Mike linebacker was a first-team All-State player that could really run. He was a big problem. He was a really fast kid that could really move. The bonus here, I felt like their DBs and their structure did not match up very well for what we wanted to do and what we try to accomplish with our offense in this given year. So, again, the big thing came down to how well the offensive line is going to play against a really good interior. And then if we can get that done, we can loosen it up with stuff on the perimeter. But like Dan said, the problem was it helped us and it hurt them, in my opinion. You can't tell right now. You can see on this freeze frame a little bit, though, but it is literally raining sideways. And it's like a rain, sleet, snow mixture. And it is, I mean, it's windy. I mean, it was a strong wind nonstop. And, you know, this was one of the few times I think, and Dan, we've talked about this before, but this was one of the few times where I think this offensive line especially was so big and so strong overall. They were so much heavier than Castle's guys were that a little bit of a kind of a slick or muddy track actually helped us in this game. And we could really kind of dig our cleats in and move these guys around as time went on. But, yeah, the weather kind of took us out of our plan some, but the O-line played exceptionally well this game. And we honestly just – offensively, we ended up just overpowering them, to be honest. And I didn't think that would happen to the degree that it did. I'm glad it did, obviously, but yeah, they were a really good football team. I think we caught them on a great night, though. It's a long drive. The weather was not very good, and I did say this beforehand. They reminded me a lot of our 2013 team, where I felt there was a little element of all this breakdown where I felt like they got hot at the right time. And I kind of told people beforehand, I think there's two things that are going to happen in this game. One, they're going to be as good as advertised, and they're going to come up here and they're going to play us really, really close. I still think we can win the game, but it's going to be an absolute battle. And I didn't think that – I thought that we would win, but I thought, you know, they're going to be really, really, really good like the film shows, and this is going to be a rough night. The other scenario was – they just caught fire at the right time, and very similar to the 13 when we went down to Columbus East, they're just going to run into a buzzsaw. And those were really the two things I had thought, and thankfully the latter of the two is what happened here. We played tremendously well, and we just catch them on a little bit of a tough night for their system. So, and we end up kind of having our way with it. So, yeah.
So defensively, you're going to see us take advantage of this here, I think, pretty routinely throughout this game. This is just an old school cover 3 structure here. He's going to play deep third. He's going to play deep third. He's got this flat, which he doesn't have an immediate flat threat. He's got this flat. Kind of got hook curl here. And they really didn't come out of this very much, to be honest. And he's got your deep middle. But in my opinion, the problem you run into here is that you're really playing with 10, because he's so far away that he really can only make a tackle at probably 9 yards at the closest, even if he hard fills, which he usually doesn't. So, you know,
we run our quarterback a lot.
Yeah, and you know, I think they miss this extra hat a lot in this game. But, you know, every system has pros and cons. We talked about that a little bit. We talked about that some with some of the RPO stuff. And, you know, every system is positive and negative, and that's kind of the negative of this. Here's a flood.
Yeah, Doug and I have actually become Coach Hurt down there, and I have actually become good friends over the years as well. And we've got kind of a standing summer scrimmage with those guys as well now, which unfortunately this summer got canceled. They were going to come up to us, but all the Corona apocalypse has shut all that down. So, but yeah, they do a great job down there. We went down there last year and they hosted us, and it was a really wonderful event. And he's a great guy, great coach, does a tremendous job down there with that program. And a good friendship has been sparked from this particular game. A lot of respect between these two teams, even though we rarely would ever get to meet each other, obviously, because you've got to advance. Even now still, if we were to play them again, both teams would have to be in the semi-state game. So we do some stuff in the summer with them just because it's Castle's a tremendous program that's well coached and they do things the right way. And I've got a lot of respect for what they do down there. It's a real classy program. But yeah, this is one of those games I think too where we kept things pretty tight, Dan. If I remember, it's pretty much inside zone, outside zone, and some trap. Really, this was a pretty tight game. So you can go ahead and roll it.
Get a first down drop there.
Yeah, we don't do much here out of the gate.
Yeah. I think the offensive line played a really good game after this series. I think we had I do remember a inspirational meeting we had after this drive. And after that, they came out and turned it on a little bit.
Third
and long, just quarterback zone here.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was talking about. Just the way their structure was set up, the way we ran our quarterback too. They really just don't have that hat in the box, and that's a big deal for us. We get a couple good blocks there as well up front. Good block by Nick.
Try to get him to jump here. And don't timeout.
It was worth a shot. They're too disciplined for that. It was worth a go. Truthfully, I did not want their offense to come on the field, which I'll talk about here in a second. But, giving them the ball down there, if we fail that fourth down, which I thought we could have made it, but if we fail it somehow, you're going to start praying at that point because their offense was lethal.
All right, so here we go. One of the things that I really like about what Castle does is they show you a lot of different stuff. They're really multiple, and they're really good at most of it. So I'll let you kind of talk about their personnel and their scheme here a little bit.
Yeah, they were an interesting matchup for us. And like I said, their offense had just been so explosive. Our team this year in 15 was much more built for downhill football. And we weren't as good side to side as we were in 14. It just wasn't what we had. And Castle, unfortunately so, was pretty much an all perimeter team. Their main running play was essentially outside zone or stretch. Their passing plays were, my God, like limitless combinations of screens combined with intermediate sit-down routes and stuff like that. They threw, I don't even know, probably a dozen tunnel-type screens, bubble-ish type screens against Bloomington South, all of which then have, like a Y pop element or a hitch or some kind of a hook where you then have to cover intermediate routes as well. And we were not built for that. That was one thing that really scared me in this game is they played laterally so well. And so we felt like we needed to overprotect the perimeter in this game and make them run the ball inside. I didn't think that their offensive line, their left tackle is an SEC kid. So that was a mismatch. That was a problem. But their offensive line, they were pretty big, but I felt like our guys up front had an advantage over them just off of kind of general athleticism and strength for sure. I mean, I thought strength was probably our biggest win in this game as far as just the overall general look at it. But we felt like if we could make them run the ball, especially between the tackles, that we were going to be able to have a major advantage in that regard. And then the other issue with their horizontal game, so a couple of their linemen, I think, went on to play college ball. Not major. The one kid went to the SEC, but their quarterback goes on to play. He goes to Marion, I think. 2 receivers end up playing college ball, and the 2 receivers were both track kids, and they were fast. They had literally just run by so many people. So when we had to really sell out to stop the horizontal game, their vertical passing game was nightmarish, and they use a tight end a lot or 2 tight ends a lot. So you're going to draw a lot of one-on-one type coverages with those 2 really fast kids. The problem then also became the 2 tight ends were both like 6'3", 230 and 6'5", 220. So we don't have anyone to cover those guys, and they are one of the very, very, very few teams that we have ever played that actually runs routes short in the middle of the field. I mean, they ran like Y pop, Y seam, like a couple that looked like almost like a wide choice type route. They ran that religiously and just hammered the middle of the field, which again was a problem for us because usually we blitz our guys like crazy and vacate the middle of the field because no one throws it there. So this was one of the rare times where we had to really change a little bit of who we are defensively to stop them. And it made for an interesting week of practice for sure. We're getting held like crazy right there.
Yeah, kind of a non-traditional, like a wing wrap on this counter look here. That is a big boy. You're right. That tight end is a large fella.
Yeah, and they ran a lot of formations. That's the backup tight end. The starters, I think, was number 44. He's in there right now blocking. But yeah, they had some really big kids. So that's like if you go back to this formation, this is the trouble I'm talking about. So this is essentially what we would call Lake. You might even call it Lake Bunch, but that big tight end up top of the point is 6'5", 220. And then the other tight end to the bottom of the screen is attached, and he was like 6'3", I don't know, 225, 230, something like that. I mean, and then the other 2 kids are super, super fast track kids that can just run up and down the field like deer. So they really had some serious matchup problems for us in regards to, you know, what we can and can't do defensively.
Yeah, I see. You know, like you talked about, we've gone against Castle quite a bit, and you know, I see a lot of similarities in what Doug does with his offense in terms of he's always looking for that formation that makes you bleed, and you know he's gonna move his tight end around. He's gonna bunch guys together to try to find that one matchup that really hurts you, and once he finds it, he is going to make you bleed with it. And kind of neat that, as we go back here, I mean, you've already seen 3 totally different formations here, 3 totally different surfaces right out of the gate. You've got a tight end wing with receiver on each side. Then we come back and we've got tight end wing together and the 2 receivers opposite. Now we're tight end, nub tight end boundary, trips to the other side. You see. You can really kind of see, and I think that's one of the things, like I said, Doug does really well. I've seen him speak in the clinic circuit a couple times, is that he's going to show you a bunch of different stuff early and find out what really hurts you.
Yeah, it comes down to how well prepared you are. Here's here's one of the tunnel screens. Actually did a great job here by Thaddeus to get out in that window. I mean, we worked on this stuff maybe more in this week than we have in 7 years combined. Because I mean, this is what they did. This is who they were. Really nice job by him, and he causes a fumble.
All All right, so come back, drive number 2. Pretty good field position here. Penalty. And here's where you really start to hurt cover 3 teams. Because again, they've got a safety that's just way off the screen over here. And you're going to get this look here, and we actually get 2 free. We've kind of got this coming or going, truthfully. I mean, Joe just runs right by him.
Yeah, Verts is going to be probably our most popular call here of the night in the passing game. Verts, we actually called even on the goal line once.
Second and short. Kind of get a little B-gap spike there, Coach Buchanan.
Yeah, I watched this last night.
Yeah, this was one of the – we get this from time to time, and it's something that we got to make some adjustments to when teams choose to do this kind of front side spike on us. It's definitely one of the things that teams have tried to do as an inside zone killer over the years, and it just comes down more to we got to start talking about what our combo blocks are going to look like here. And I would say, I mean, I don't know how many times you think teams have tried this against us, like probably 5 or 6 over the years. I would bet they take those guys and spike them hard in the B gap and try to make us bounce everything. The easy answer is we just either, well, in this game we start calling trap, but we just start calling outside zone, and you're pretty much done at that point. If we get around the edge of you, you're just completely done. I think that's Austin, isn't it, too, as a freshman? That's him as a freshman, right?
Yeah, Austin Keel, freshman.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of hard because we're telling him to step wide to widen that guy, and when he spikes like that, it's kind of hard to recover from, especially for a 15-year-old.
So third and about a yard here.
So here's our first trap, and you can see they spike on the front side again and literally run right by it. Matt's going to wrong arm this guy, and the guy actually goes so far underneath him, he really just ends up just falling down on top of him. Guy takes himself out of the play.
Kind of a similar look to what we saw in that inside zone there on second and short a second ago.
Yeah, they're lining up wide, and then they're this one just turns into kind of a pig pile, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
That fall down in the mud and stuff. I don't know. This was, oh God. You know, I know Dan probably appreciates this as well, but this is one of the nice things about having that turf field. While I love playing on grass as a player and coaching on grass and stuff, but you can tell on our field right now, even on the film, this area of our field was some of the worst grass and ground and soil that I have ever coached or played on. And from about the 28, 25-yard line, middle to left hash, all the way to the end zone, was constantly just a swamp. It didn't matter if it hadn't rained for a week. It was still, for some reason, wet from the sprinklers. I mean, it was terrible. So you're kind of seeing it. We're falling all over the place right now. It was just a mess. We used to call it the Bermuda Triangle, because if we would kick the ball off down there, when teams went in, they'd never come out. You couldn't get out of this area. And we would always kick it deep left into that corner of the field because the ground and the footing was awful. It was terrible. So Yeah, we're getting down to that area now where it's going to start getting pretty sloppy.
Here comes the trap again. Really good look at it here.
Yeah, that's a really good kick out by Matt. That's a big block there. You know, Dan, it may be interesting for people. You may want to talk about kind of that philosophy that we use with Matt and kind of how we go about some of that.
Are you talking about the 14 season?
Yeah, Matt and Michael Woodall, really, both those guys, because it really pays big dividends for us, especially like you see Matt on this block right here. I mean, let's be real. You know, those preceding years, I would have never thought we could have gotten some of these things out of Matt. He ended up being a tremendous player for us.
Yeah, and so we started the 14 season with literally an entire junior starting lineup except for David Judy, who's a sophomore. And our right tackle, Michael Woodall, and our right guard, Matt Moeller. I mean, like I said earlier, I coach grade every single play that we do in the season. And they were inexperienced, and we just kind of nursed them through our conference, and and they just were not grading up to par. And I talked to them, and I worked with them, and we had a couple of seniors in 14 that were playing defensive line. And after the last regular season game, I went to Michael and Matt, and then just said, "Listen, guys, your grades are just they're not up to par. What we need to win a state tournament, state final, and I'm going to put you on the bench. Keep working hard, and we'll if you get back in the lineup, get back in the lineup." Well, ironically, I remember it was about the third series of the 2014 Columbus East game. Our senior right Trent Mahan goes down with an ankle. So Matt had to go back to the game against Columbus East, who was obviously, that you've already seen, a really good football team, and he performed pretty well. And then in the state championship game, our senior tackle went down, and Michael Woodall had to go back to the game, and he also performed well. So we went into this season with an entire 5 starting lineup, four seniors and a junior returning, and they were very experienced, and it showed. And they were very unbelievably united. They were like best friends, and they did everything together. So going into this season, we showed a lot of promise. I mean, these guys, I'm not supposed to text these guys, but I would send these guys a text after practice, and they would use that group text, and they would be texting for like the next month. And I kept telling them, take me off of this, but it was really a great. And Michael, of course, in the second game of the season goes down with a torn ACL, and we were thin. We were always thin. But Austin Keel, who's playing right tackle in this picture, is a freshman, and he was our next best possible lineman, and we brought him in, and he played this entire season right tackle. So, but Matt responded. You bench a guy, sometimes they don't take it very well and they don't respond. But Matt responded, and he came back, and he's a wonderful young man, and he's about as thin as these receivers now. But he come out and had an absolute outstanding senior year, and you'll get to see a lot of that in this game if he plays a pretty good game.
Yeah, I think the big thing too with that is understanding that, like, in 14, we were building towards trying to find that depth and get those kids developed. And, while I say that, like, we kind of knew, look, we're going to take our lumps with these guys, but it's going to pay off. And that was, Dan's big thing was, look, we just got to keep playing these guys, keep getting them the reps, the experience, and deal with the bad. And while it's really frustrating at times, it's going to pay off in the long run. And we kept sticking with it. And like he said, there comes a point in time in every season where enough's enough. You're not getting the job done, and someone else is there to potentially be good enough to take your job, whatever it might be. And that time came for Matt and Michael in their junior year, and neither one pouted about it or anything like that. But I think getting those guys so much experience in 14 man, it paid big dividends for us. And it really worked out well. It doesn't always work that way, but we were willing to kind of take a couple on the chin to develop those guys as the season went on, in the hopes that it would pay off for us down the road. But like he said, there comes a time where you've got to perform, and some kids handle that well and some don't. I think Matt, going into this senior year, was one of the hardest workers on the whole team. I mean, I remember when I got the job, my God, he could barely lift a weight. And in this particular season, he actually ends up freakishly breaking his hand in the off season doing a drill. And a kid like that who had lost his job that previous year then ends up having to have that hand casted and then never missed a lift. Came to every lifting session. I mean, he just refused to be denied. Squatted with our safety bar instead of the regular bar, which was absolutely awful. I mean, he did everything you could ask him to do. And yeah, it's just really, like you said, it's a great story. Great kid, great story. And yeah, now he's probably smaller than a wide receiver. He's probably lost over 100 pounds. And I see him run through the neighborhood whenever they're on break at school. So anyway, another one of the unsung heroes, though. I know we like pointing those guys out on this thing, but a guy like Matt was another. He didn't get any of the credit in it, but he was an unsung hero of this group for sure. Wonderful kid and a wonderful player.
So, first down here in the red zone for the first time. Try to go to go ahead, Dan.
I'm thinking maybe we shouldn't have had that talk about Matt right before this play.
Kind of losing the backside A gap there.
Yeah, we're literally falling all
Nick
over.
Nick does a nice job getting something out of that. We don't need to watch that one anymore. So here comes the quarterback zone again.
Really good look at it right there. That's a really good job across the front on this particular play. Good lead block as well by Nick. Joe does a nice job. This is a well-blocked play.
One of the things, and I talked about this a little bit, with kind of missing that extra half. And I mean, we're 4 for 4 here. Our 3 linemen and our tight end here, we're in deuce. And then you've got Nick for this single high safety. And they just don't have anybody left.
Yeah.
David Judy does a real nice job there. Let me get this down to about a 1. It'd be quarterback zone instead of the regular zone. I think, not to say that we never do it, but obviously the last couple of seasons, this has been the strongest kid in our entire team in Charlie Spiegel. And you've seen us, we don't call quarterback zone on the goal line nearly as much the last couple of years as we have previously.
Yeah.
For that reason. I mean, and why would you? When you've got a kid that
the size of a running back.
Right.
Okay.
But in 18 and 19, when you've got a kid that he can basically squat a Ford Fiesta, why would you not give him the ball? So, I would assume that'll be something that you'll see us kind of come back to a little bit more, is some of this quarterback zone stuff down tight. That's a really good look at it.
Yeah, good pickup up front. We get really nice movement here. I know this isn't much of a time to go into an inside zone clinic, but anytime you can get vertical displacement on those inside zones along with the horizontal, you got a great play. And we did a really nice job up front we're pushing those guys into the end zone. I mean, there's not even a player in white on our side of the line of scrimmage there where we're trying to run the football. So you're going to have a lot of success when you got that going. That was a nice play. I mean, Alex literally walked in.
Well, you can see how bad the footing is.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Not a great night to be a kicker.
No.
So 7-0.
Yeah, not great here again on the old special teams. You can tell how bad it is. There wasn't even an attempted kickoff. We're already holding the ball on the tee here, and then, we kick it right into the wind to, well, really what's probably one of the two fastest players on the field, and both of them belong to them. So not great.
It's like a little single wedge here.
We literally get three people within about a yard of each other here. It's pretty bad.
Kind of a cross block, kick out here type look. Kind of triple gap ourselves there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here we go again. You got tight end wing up top. And we're going for the home run.
Thankfully, you overthrew this one.
The second time we've seen this play action look here, where they kind of show this wing wrap. And you basically get that. Nice little stick step there by that slot on this. Don't get a very good reroute.
Yeah, this is Gunner playing out here as a sophomore at corner right now, and he just doesn't move his feet very well. Gets kind of stuck in the mud a little bit here on this, and we don't get a great jam, but Gunner also doesn't react to the fact that his guy went inside. I mean, it really is just kind of a rocket go look with this two-man surface here, and he just does not respond well to the actual movement, so he's too close as well.
Little buck sweep look here.
Buck sweep. The running back was fast. Not a very powerful kid, but really, really fast. He could definitely go. He was quick. Again, that was one of the hard things. You can just go ahead and let it play, just let it roll. But that was one of the hard parts, again, in evaluating these guys. I mean, he had some games where he looked, I don't know, I guess pretty human. And then he had a game or two in the year where he ran for, my God, like 400 yards against like Evansville Central or something, or 300 something yards against them. I mean, it was wild. And then he had another game where he just had exploded, and it's kind of like, oh my God, what are we getting ourselves into here? So anyway,
now all of a sudden we hop into unbalanced quads, tight end covered. We're under center. And here comes the old Peyton Manning, Edgerrin James stretch.
Yeah, they ran this play quite a bit. We do a really good job here, though, bottling it up and giving him nowhere to go. Again, that was the one thing. He was super fast, but he wasn't very physical. As long as we could keep him in between the tackles, which we didn't do in the previous play, I felt like we were going to be just fine.
This Crumlin looks like he does a really good job.
Yep.
Firing on this and setting this edge out here.
Yep.
Takes that tackle on, sets the edge, forces him back in. Makes tackle too. Really nice play.
Another well-timed slant by them here. I think the tight end, both these receivers, and the quarterback and the left tackle at some point all end up being first-team All-State players, and they had some serious talent on this team.
Slant and go look here.
Yeah, get up over our head, and we get a good break up from the safety here. Nick does a great job rallying to this one. We just break our feet down too much here. And we get beat inside. That's Brett. We get beat inside here and lose our footing, and not a great job, but Brett gets over there and breaks it up.
Buck sweep again.
Much better job.
Yep. So 3rd and long here. This is something that you talked about. They love to do this.
Yeah.
So it almost turns into a quick screen here. Honestly, the way they do this is just going to be an arrow, but they're going to leak the back here to try to kind of seal this. I would argue this isn't legal.
It's not.
Because he's downfield.
Again, they're not going to call this.
No, this is not a screen.
No, this is another thing you're going to run until they call it. We get held there too.
I think you get the holding call.
Yeah, we do. But, yeah, it should be illegal anyway. But, again, you're playing the game of are the officials going to catch these things? And the answer is no. Put that in the offensive pass interference category. Really nice play here. Good pressure.
He's got 4 verts, tight end drag here. Long time to cover all those really fast receivers. So force a punt here. Go ahead, Coach.
No, I just said we've got pretty good over-under coverage on the last one. It was a nice play, good blitz, good pressure. I think that was Thaddeus that got through after the blitz came around.
Really nice punt here.
Yeah, he's got the wind at his back. He booms this one.
So 3rd drive, up 7-0. There's your verts again.
Yep, verts again. Yeah, with that one high structure, we're going to be able to split these two seams, especially with play action, pretty easily here. This one would get them because it's the side that they think the ball is coming to. So the linebacker on our left, their right, he's got to stay in there with that play fake because the ball looks like it's coming at him. So this is just play action, and we essentially just replace him with the ball. Pretty simple. Tough throw into the wind again. We throw it a little behind him, but it's a good gain. Get us out of the hole here. You can go ahead. Then we end up running a trap now for a big one. Another pretty solid
really good trap.
Nick ran this really well too. Nick was a really good trap running back. He was really quick. His opening couple steps were really good. He was a really good trap running back. So it's kind of one of the plays that we used, I would say, a lot more in this particular year than we have in other previous years. Nick was good at this play. I mean, we got a huge hole up front too. I mean, you could drive a truck through that thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, Coach Buchanan, that's what you're looking for in the old trap play right there.
Yeah, we're still in the good field, on the good side of the field, so we're getting better footing. Yeah, that's pretty clean. And you can see the difference in the field just by looking at that wide view there.
Yeah, yeah. I think this drive was the point in the game too, and I don't know, Dan, you can maybe speak to this. We just let it roll, Wes, but this was probably the point in the game, honestly, too, where I felt like, all right, we're fine. This drive right here was really that moment where I thought we're going to be fine tonight. We're good.
I think we showed up nervous, at least offensive line wise. We showed up pretty nervous, and we're into the game now a little bit more.
I think in this game too, this is our knockdown record.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah, I mean they really get after it here. Again, like I said, that I think this drive is the one where I really settled into and was like, all right, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. But we're getting after him here up front.
Quarterback variant. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I think Andrew Yezel had 21 knockdowns in this game.
Yeah, he played a great game.
There's a quarterback variant on our trap here.
Yep, another good job blocking too.
2 tight ends are in. Nice run there by Nick Brickens.
Yeah, like I said, that drive was just systematic. I mean, you can go ahead and kind of let the special team stuff roll here, but that was the drive where I really felt like, all right, if we can keep moving at this pace, there's no problem tonight. We're going to be fine. It's 14-0. The O-line is really feeling it. We literally just systematically ran the ball right down their throat. Verts is pretty much wide open whenever we want it right now. We're going to be good. As long as those guys up front keep playing, which they're going to, we're going to be fine tonight. We're going to make a big play here in a second anyway on defense or special teams. But after that,
14-0.
Good. So like you can see, I mean, like I said, they are trying to stretch everything horizontal. Like everything for them was side to side, which is not what we were used to. They had just killed Bloomington South on that. I mean, the horizontal pressure they put on the field is really one of the more extreme teams that you're going to probably find or see. And that's pretty uncommon and something we had not really seen or dealt with much. So, I mean, you can tell they're not – everything is bouncing. Their buck sweeps are going wide. Their stretches obviously wide. They run outside zone a lot. Even this counter play is trying to get around us right now. They're trying to pin and pull and go around everybody. It was a unique scheme for sure, and they've had a lot of success with it. I think it's probably changed some over the years with what they have, but yeah, for the most part, this is kind of what they do. They are trying to use their speed to stress your edges, and that can be tough. So
compress the formation down here, try to get a couple of crack blocks in here tight, and try to get the fast kid around us. Adam Kincaid does a really nice job there at the point of attack. He gets held.
Yeah. Here
comes Logan. He gets clipped.
230-pound tight end just throws him down.
So now they're backed up again. Kind of a double slant look. That honestly probably should have went to number 1.
These are the little things too, where they were just like I said, they were just a little bit off. Some of it I think might have been the pressure, the field, the weather, etc. But and they were probably nervous as well, I'm sure. They were just a tick off.
Jailbreak again. Kind of a tunnel down here to number 1.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, and you talked about this a little bit. Here's what gets a little bit tough. You know, when you play Castle and it's 3rd and a mile, you know it's screen, highly likely. But the problem is they run so many variants and so many things. You know, when you play a normal team and you get in those what I call screen and draw downs, and we've talked a little bit about screen and draw, and 2nd and long, 3rd and long, screen and draw. Their teams usually do 1 or 2 things. But in this case, you've kind of got to prepare for, in a look like this, you've got to prepare for any number of options.
Yeah, about 12 of them.
So here comes the tunnel of the boundary. Nice fill by Joe there.
Yep. Good play.
Ankle tackle. Adam and Logan are there to clean it up. Huge play in this ball game right here.
Yeah, so this was on one of my little top 25 countdown we did at the start of this coronavirus deal. Just kind of keeping everyone a little bit of a football mindset. This was a great play here by Jordan Workman, who was a great kid, super hard worker. Family moved into the area from way out of town up in Fort Wayne, and was only with us for a year. I wish we would have had him for longer. He was a big-time project-type player, but quick learner, really intense kid, incredibly strong. You know, he really developed into a great player over the course of the year, and huge play for him right here to block. He was always a full effort. I remember Dan probably remembers this too. Boy, him and Yazel in practice, when we would do some of our like best of the rest stuff, man, Jordan and Yazel used to just, I mean, they would get it out of each other. They absolutely would go after one another in our best of the rest sessions, because Jordan was always, I mean, he was always 100%. I mean, it was never like a, hey man, what's the effort? You know, where's the effort at? I mean, there were times where we had to just tell him, you need to calm down some. Like, this is not a full speed drill. Well, him and Yazel had some battles inside in practices from time to time, and here's Jordan making a great hustle play and blocking this punt that we returned for a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, you're talking about the weather. This snap is terrible. And I can sympathize with that, because we've had a few of those in bad weather in the last few years. And, you know, I think every special teams coach in America knows what I'm about to say, but I don't think a lot of fans think about it. And we've played some really bad weather games the last couple of years, and we've watched some in this series. It is so hard to short and long snap in weather like this, especially in the mud. It's one thing on turf, and it's hard enough on turf, but it is another thing entirely in the mud to be able to snap a wet ball that far and snap it with the pace that you need to. And you'll see this happen a lot. And I'll tell you what, any fan that was at our Newcastle game this year, when it just rained sideways the whole night, saw that from both sides. Both teams that punted. We blocked one and returned it for a touchdown. They actually tried to run a fake because they couldn't snap it against our punt block, and threw an interception that Luke Canfield returned for a touchdown. We had a snap that looked like this as well. The poor snap here is really what makes this, and it's such a big part of bad weather games that I assume our fans don't really give a lot of thought to when they show up and you know, get settled in their seats with their umbrellas and their tents and their blankets at 7:30 on a Friday night, or in this case on a Saturday night. But when you think back to some of those bad weather games that we've played, Zionsville in 2018 when they snap one over the punter's head for a safety, Harrison in 2018 when it's 9 degrees, you know, the bad weather really affects your short and your long snappers. It really does. Still a great play by Jordan. I'm not trying to take anything away from the play, but there's no, in these conditions on grass, this is what's going to happen. And there's honestly not a great solution to that problem. So just like that, you know, there's kind of one of those situations where here in about 2 minutes, we flip the board twice, and it goes from 7-0 at the end of the first quarter to we've now played 2.5 minutes, and it's 21-0. You can see the footing there.
Yeah,
we're really struggling.
Yeah, we're just falling all over the place.
Another tunnel screen.
Yep, another quick screen to the perimeter.
Boy, Crumlin just absolutely gets tattooed right in the spine on that one.
Yeah.
That tight end just mauls him.
He just gets tackled. Yeah. Yeah, some split flow zone here, split flow outside. They run their boots and stuff as well. Not often you see a split flow like stretch play.
Yeah.
They'll come around though and they'll run some naked and stuff. Really great play by Luke Ely. That's another I know we've seen him play in these games, but that's Luke Ely as a freshman out there playing linebacker. He won a job out there, and great job by him. Great play.
So they compress the formation down again. Honestly, it's kind of almost an all hitch look here. Leak an arrow out.
This is their running back swing one too. They run two guys. Yeah.
Hitch.
Like I said, this is one of the very few teams that's going to run a lot of these routes in the middle of the field here, where their running back swings out, hoping your linebacker is going to go with him, and they try to run that wide pop or that wide sit right behind him, and we don't bite on it. Crumlin does a pretty decent job of at least staying with that guy. We make them throw the swing to the running back out there. We're gonna do a better job of it here later after we've seen it once or twice. But yeah, it's the opposite of how our linebackers, quite frankly, have been trained. So we've got to make some changes in the scheme to that. So we do a pretty good job of it.
2x2 tight ends up top here. We're in a little bit of Barney Rubble trouble there.
No pressure here at all. We absolutely lose a route again at corner with all these sit downs and then the verticals that come off of them. This is another kind of like a hitch and a driving wheel that we lose it again. We're not too clean at DB right now.
Another screen.
Another screen.
Get a drop there. So fourth and 8 here, just across midfield, and I think they have very little choice here, honestly, at 21-0.
Yeah, you're pretty much forced to go for these. This is what I was talking about. Same exact scenario here. We just rallied the ball a little bit better. We've got another kind of interior route here with your running back swing coming out to the side, and we do a really good job of rallying to that one and stopping it, as opposed to the other one where we hadn't seen it yet. So Crumlin kind of passed that little sit-down route into Joe, and then he goes out to cover the swing route. We do a really good job there and get him off the field. It's a good play.
Really nice pull there by Alex.
Yeah. This actually is it's actually our midline zone right here. Or no, that's just regular. It's just regular. Sorry.
Yeah, regular with a wing. Backside wing.
Yeah.
Really starting to get pushed now. You'll see in a few plays here. I think it's this drive where we're double teaming these guys, and they've got their cleats. The defense got their cleats to the ground, and they're just sliding across the mud.
That's a really good look at it, right? I mean, that's just a good wall built by the line right there. We're getting we're getting 4 to 5 yards of push at some spots.
Wing counter, quarterback version.
There's the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're just sinking it in here. This is great. I mean, this is 7 yards worth of push essentially right there from the offensive line, really. I mean, we're not even getting touched until we're at the first down marker right there. We get hit. That's 5 yards before we even get contact, and then Nick gets us up to, 10.
Trap again.
Yeah, this one we got to log. We logged this one here. Guy crashes down. Pretty good log block, really. It's a nice job. This was going to be such a dangerous play for them. This play was going to hurt them, in my opinion, so much, and it really does. They just didn't have the numbers down here to save them.
You see a little gap exchange backside.
Yeah, they bring some extra pressure on this one here. They jump into a man. Not something they had really done much of, to be honest. They very rarely had played man-to-man. You can see they're going to crash and then bring that blitzer off the perimeter there. So we kind of get an extra hat unblocked over there, but we come off a block too. But yeah, this is not something they had really done a ton of down here. They much preferred to stay away from people and keep you in front. So jumping man-to-man, most teams inside the red zone will play more man-to-man. It is not something that they really had done a ton of. So just a standard run is not a great call in that scenario, but a quarterback run then is. So we come right back to a quarterback run.
Yeah, quarterback outside zone boundary, something we really like. And, we get really lucky here because they actually do the exact same thing. I won't say we get lucky, but they do the exact same thing.
Yeah, but it's to the front side this time.
Yeah. Yeah, they're thinking the same look here where we're going to do this, and we instead run quarterback zone right at this gap exchange. There's a gap exchange and a twist here.
Yeah, we do a good job on the fan call on the right side because then Yazel picks the twister up. It's actually pretty well done by these guys on the right-hand side. It's a nice job. Matt pushes the penetrator out. Yazel picks up the looper. It's really well done.
That's about as textbook as it gets right there, Coach Buchanan.
Yeah. Pretty good for a freshman to see that coming.
You may want to talk about this some, Dan, too, since we've got you on this today. I mean, the amount of, for the O-line guys that maybe watch this stuff, the amount of with the crazy things that we see, the time that you put in weekly to stuff like this, just because we really, truthfully, I know we've talked about this, but we really never know what we're going to get. We've seen teams that don't do this stuff, and all of a sudden we play them, and they're twisting it, and I mean, every snap sometimes, and just getting crazy. You may want to speak to that since we've got a little bit of time here. We're almost finished with this half.
Well, that's why I think we simplified so much and we run so much zone stuff because we don't ever get what we expect. I mean, it's always something just a little bit different. So we literally practice all those scenarios of twist and blitz and identifying different fronts and getting in those and running inside and outside zone against them just so we can be ready. Because if you line up and try and run, if you practice trap all week and then you come out, on Friday and you're playing a 3-3 stack instead of a normal 4-2, then you just spent the entire week practicing something that you can't use. And, I think early on in your career, we probably did that a few times where we actually drilled, trap or, power or whatever, and then we ran it once or twice, and then we couldn't use it. So I think that's why it's so important that we're such a high focus on zone, inside and outside zone, that we can practice those things and we can be ready for whatever the defense brings us, and blitz, and that's what we do. We practice. We do our pass pro stuff while Wes is doing special teams, but when we get together, depending on what's going on that week, literally 75, 80, sometimes 90% is on nothing but zone blocking, double teams, and twists, and all the different things. And I think that's what makes our offensive line better, is because they practice one thing and they get better at that one thing. You and I have met with coaches ever since you've been here. I always stress the same thing. Power is a great play, and all these different schemes are great. Buck sweep is a great play, and all that. But that's what those people do. And what makes us good is that we are a zone team, and we don't try and trick anyone. We just line up and run zone, and you have to stop that. If you can, you're going to beat us. But if you can't, we're going to run the ball. And I think that's a big difference in what a lot of people are trying to do. And I've coached for other coaches, and the simple way that we do it is a big part of what makes us good. That's it.
Yeah. As Dan was saying that, by the way, I know some people had commented on this as well, because we just watched the Snyder game. Like, we're not joking, when we say this stuff here. Look at our sideline right now. What you see, by the way, is the whole team. That's everybody. I know a couple people commented to me about that in regards to, what the sidelines and stuff look like, in comparison. But when we're playing 5A ball, guys, that's what we have. Like, that little grouping that fits in a 10-yard space right there, that's our whole team. What's on the field and then what's standing right there, that's pretty much what we've got. And that's what makes the challenges of having to play up even harder. Castle at the time, I think they were the largest school in 5A at this particular time. So we're literally playing a school that was really twice our size, and had it was a massive roster of people. So yeah, it's not a lie. That what you see down there that fits into a 10-yard window from the 25 to the 35, that's what we have. Now, they're congregated because the space heater's down there. So you can see some of these guys are just sitting there trying to warm up, but not many 5A football teams are going to fit inside of a 10-yard window. Let's be real here. So yeah, it's not a joke. We have what we have, and we make that work. It's actually Colby as a freshman holding that kickoff.
Almost get one here. About 5 minutes to go here. As you can see, 5:14. Here comes the stretch.
Yep. Good job with the guys up front again.
Oops, let me hit that button. Another look here. Now we're in traditional two tight. The twins over here, we call this formation rodeo.
Yeah, the amount of stuff you've got to be prepared for is pretty extreme.
Boundary trips. They're going to run outside to it, kind of that split flow outside.
Yep.
Again, really nice job turning that back in. Give him a punt again. I presume that's one of those situations where we are absolutely not going to touch it, right?
Yeah, 28-0 in the mud like that. No, that was in the wind and the rain and the mud. We're just going to let that one go.
Do a really nice job.
Yeah, nice one.
Being
Does a
red
really nice
right there.
job of kind of charging the mesh point and playing both of them a little bit. We probably should have given this ball off, but he really puts us in a rough spot right there. A nice play by that kid.
Kind of see some little communicating here. And Joe's going to kind of turn, I don't know if this is called or not, but Joe's going to turn this into a bubble because of his demeanor.
Yeah, we always had this in this season on the backside. We could run a bubble or a hitch with that number 3 guy this year. That was something that we had built into pretty much the backside of every one of our zone plays, regardless. We did it a decent amount throughout this season as well, that kind of RPO. So as you can see here, the Bermuda Triangle doesn't really care if you're the home team or not. You get stuck down in that mess, you're not coming out of it. The footing's terrible. You can't move very quickly. It is just an awful part of the field to be in. When you go in there, you're not coming out. It's rough. It is rough. Great punt by Nick, though.
It's a 2-minute drill here for them.
Yeah.
Bring that backside receiver all the way across.
It's a long crossing route on this play action here. It's great, though, for them because, like I said, you cannot put a lot of pressure on them because of their screen game because you're going to run right by them. So their system complements itself really well. We almost have him there in the backfield because, those, like, hey, how can you let a quarterback sit back in the pocket that long? Well, if you pressure and you're not pressuring at the right times here, then their screen game is just going to absolutely chew you up. And that's kind of where Bloomington South had gotten in trouble the week before is they were trying to solve their problems with pressure, and then, God, Castle they screened them to death. Or they would get the one-on-one matchups they wanted, and they'd hit a deep ball on them. So that, by the way, probably would have been a penalty in 2019, that little deal right there is that quarterback slid and Luke kind of – this wasn't like a malicious play, but as he went to, like, trap him right there, we probably got a penalty for that 4 years later, which is crazy to think, but it probably would have been a penalty, which it's not.
So we're making them be methodical here, which is kind of the goal during 2-minute, is make them try to move in as small a chunks as possible.
Yep. Same thing, another route over the middle of the field here that we cover pretty well. And this Joe does a nice job of passing that seam through the DBs and then coming over and picking this route up. They ran a lot in the middle of the field, a lot. Especially for high school football, it's the most commonly uncovered area, but it's also the most uncommonly thrown to area. And they just hammered the middle of the field. Great throw by him right there. It's on the dot.
Yep. A dig with an arrow.
Yeah, we fell over too.
Of our end concept here.
Yeah, technically not a screen, but very screen-like here once again. They're just going to drive people off, and he's going to run a 1-yard route. Now you've got 2x2 tights, like a double wing tight formation there.
Kind of a smash look here, honestly.
Lots of formations to deal with here. They just switch jobs there. Just an arrow and a corner. Good pass off by our guys. Nice coverage up top as well.
So that'll do it. That's the end of the half right there. So 28-0, and I'm sure you guys feel pretty good about where you're at headed to the locker room from here. I mean, everything's working offensively, defensively. You're handling a lot of the crazy stuff, and you're tackling the screens, and I'm sure you walked off the field feeling pretty good.
Yeah, Dan, you want to speak to that?
Yes. One thing, Wes, for some reason that tape is scrambled, and they actually do score. I believe they do score.
I was going to say, because I know the answer to this question because they do score here.
Yeah, they for some reason, one of the plays from the very, very early in the game is stuck in there right there. I noticed that yesterday evening. So they actually do drive down and score with almost no time left.
Oh, okay, you're right. Let me go back. Sorry.
Just go ahead and let it roll, and Dan can answer the question, though. He can answer it.
Well, I felt good. I thought my guys had really, they loosened up and were really just overpowering them. And so I felt good offensively. I would have felt a lot better had they not scored his touchdown. But yeah, I mean, I felt like, in the second half, we were just going to grind them down, and we pretty well did. So, all in all, I was pretty happy at halftime. But you always wish you were up that one more touchdown. So them scoring here didn't exactly help. But yes, I felt pretty good.
Yeah. So I was knowing they missed this PAT, but obviously knowing the value of points and stuff like that, I was really unhappy going into the half because of this. The worst part about what just happened right there on this play is we had time, and this is a route that we had practiced, I mean, all week long. And we had practiced it in the proper scenarios all week long. And we brought the kids to the sideline, and I literally had reminded them and told them again that they're going to run the rub routes and they're going to get the big tight end out on the wheel. We have got to be ready to cover this thing and pass it off appropriately. And we went over it. I mean, we covered this on the sideline and made sure everyone did their job. When they got down the red zone, they used to rub and wheel you to death. And their tight end had caught multiple touchdowns on film on this exact same route. I mean, the exact same route. And we practiced it all week. You can even see some of the kids already know, like, some of the guys not involved in the play, they already know what's coming because not only have we practiced this and we had the scenario absolutely down pat, you can see their body language just like, seriously, like Nick in the back is just like, oh boy, I already know. I was really mad. We gave up a touchdown that never should have happened here. We had just talked about this. I had just told them what play was coming. And, the kid makes a great throw and the tight end makes a great catch, fine. But this was really frustrating to me. And I think even more so, our defense had kind of gotten in that mode of it's 28-0, it's almost halftime, like let's just get this. And it almost felt like they had pumped the brakes to a degree. And their general intensity was not there on this particular drive. And I was really, really unhappy with that. So, coming into the half, obviously really pleased that we're up by 3 scores. But I used that particular drive as a kind of a motivational piece of like, do you really think this team's just going to give up in the semi-state game and let their season end all the way up here in New Pal and just roll over and die? If that's the effort we're going to give, especially on defense, I actually told him, I said, if I see you guys play like that one more time, I'm just taking the whole side of the ball out because the offense was going to score it. In my opinion, our offense could score at will. We had the opening drive where, like Dan said, I think we were a little bit nervous. We got stuck in the mud and literally slipped and fell on 2 consecutive plays a second ago. But to me, there was no way that we weren't going to be able to replicate our first half offensively. We could score 3 more touchdowns. So I really had told the defense that if you're going to play like that again, I'll sit every one of you down, and I'll put out 11 kids that are at least going to play hard. For it to be a semi-state championship game and for them to put forth that kind of an effort on a 2-minute drive, I was really displeased by that. And inside, obviously, you're happy. A lot of the worries of the game, I think, had faded away with it being 28-6. But we're one step away from being able to go downtown again, and there's no way that our defense is going to play like that. I just wasn't going to allow it to happen. So, yeah, I knew that when you stopped that film, I knew that they scored right there. I was going to say we have to go back to it, but Dan beat me to it. But I was internally, like I said, happy, but I knew the button I had to push was to challenge the kids. These guys always responded. I think the 15 team, the one thing about them is they always responded well to challenges. Like if you really challenged or pushed them to do something that they hadn't done or maybe seemed tremendously difficult, they would do whatever it took to respond to that. And it was a really unique team in that regard, that you could almost push the same button for every one of those kids and they would respond the same way. I think it goes back to probably what Dan said earlier. They were a really tight-knit group across the board, the O-line especially, but all those guys were such great friends and had very similar personalities. So, I pretty much went at halftime, and that was the button I pushed, and we came out and played really, really well in the second half. Both sides of the ball, but defense especially, I think, plays much better than what we just showed in those last couple of drives there. And we've gotten beat over our head a few times. It's been ugly.
Well, let's stop it here for the day, gentlemen. I know a couple of us have some meetings to get to, so we'll pick this up tomorrow in a really good second half for us, and to finish up your second trip in back-to-back years downtown. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you in the morning.
All right.